Are you ready for the Low Blows Network? Hi guys, Rick here. Before we get to this episode of Paddy's New Yacht, I'd like to talk briefly about gambling because it'll be discussed a lot on this show. Gambling is supposed to be fun and accoutrement to your sporting weekend. However, it can also be debilitating and ruin lives. If you find that your gambling gets in the way of work, school or other activities, causes mental or physical health issues, causes any issues in your life, gives you financial stress of any kind or damages your reputation, then gambling may be a danger to you. If you spot any of these signs in yourself, stop gambling immediately, consult problemgambling.ie for all resources that can assist you, and help yourself before it's too late. And now, on to Paddy's New Yacht.
Former pro wrestler Rick Nash and former Paddy Power insider David Kent are not good gamblers. They're sports fanatics who are determined to crack the code and make it rich on sports gambling or die trying.
This time next year, we'll be millionaires.
Follow them on their journey to eventual bankruptcy every Friday on the Low Blows Network with sports tips that made so much sense at the time in Paddy's New Yacht.
Maurizio Sarri pulled no punches as he dressed down the Chelsea dressing room in the wake of their defeat to Arsenal last week. Speaking in Italian because he wanted to be careful. Now, keep in mind as well, Sarri has been doing all his press conferences and media obligations in English so far, but he was so hot about this that he didn't want to get anything wrong or lost in translation. So he spoke in Italian through a translator and called the players difficult to motivate and lacking leaders on the pitch. Since doubling down on those comments, it wasn't just heat of the moment in singling out Eden Hazard as not a leader later this week. Risky game from Maurizio Sarri there, but always entertaining. And look, we're into this. We'll get miles out of this if Chelsea falls apart. So, Dave, as we get kicked off here on another edition of Paddy's New Yacht, of course, Rick Nash and the Daily Star and Buzz.ie's David Kent joining us for another one. Dave, what was your most fun dressing down of the dressing room from a manager?
The most public one is probably the best for me, and that was, again, football. Phil Brown, 3-0 down in the City of Manchester Stadium, as it was known then, with Hull. Decides to do his team talk on the pitch and, rousing, finger pointing, shouting and all that. Inspired his team to concede twice more and lose 5-0. But the best part of that story for me was 2 years later when they went 1-0 up through a Jimmy Bullard. Of all people, Jimmy Bullard.
Who else?
Scored the penalty and then corner flag. Over they went. Sat them down. Naughty man. Just fantastic. Honourable mention goes to Naked Tony Pulis.
Okay.
Have I told us one before on this? I don't think I have, actually.
I don't think you have. Go on.
Stoke City, early Stoke City Premier League. Might have been the same year. Had just been beaten at home. I want to say it was to Blackburn. James Beattie was going not a bit nuts, but he was like kind of a bit angry in the dressing room after. And all of a sudden he hears Beats, shut the fuck up, turns around, and Tony Pulis is out in the shower without a towel. And he decides to headbutt him because neither of them would calm down. So, naked Tony Pulis headbutt goes up there as well.
Like, headbutting is a time-honoured way of calming someone down. Like, if you want to deflate a situation, like, the go-to is headbutt one of the people involved in those situations. So, great management there from Tony Pulis. I want to talk about another kind of legendary British manager. Why is it always the English guys who are the mental ones for these as well with the team talks? Maybe it's just because we have it. I want to talk about Neil Warnock. I want to take you back to 1995. Huddersfield Town, he was managing at the time. They were in the second division. They would eventually get promotion. So obviously this team talk contributed in some way to that. At half-time, they're losing 2-0 to Shrewsbury Town. And then there's a video of this. It was taped for a documentary. Yeah. There's a video of this that I encourage you to look up. And Neil Warnock, before he gave the team talk, sipping tea in the shower, fully clothed by himself, just like readying himself to went out, destroyed the team, made like copious substitutions, made copious changes, went through every single player, the highlight of which was when he turned around and he said, "Where the fuck were you, mate? You're in fucking Latvia!" He was not in Latvia. He was in Shrewsbury. But I bet he fucking wished he was in Latvia. Again, like, Huddersfield won promotion that year, so the team talk may have gone some way to doing that. Unfortunately, they didn't win that game. They still lost 2-1. But Neil Warnock left us with a memory, if nothing else. And look, they turned out fine in the end. Guys, you're very welcome to another show, and welcome freeloaders. To everyone else coming in. Paddy's new yacht, now free and available on Spotify, iTunes, and patreon.com/#GlobeLoads. If it's your first time listening, basically what we do is, it's all in the intro package. Me and Dave, bad gamblers. We're not good at it. And we try...
Awful.
We try break down the sporting week. We try talk about the big stories that have piqued our interest, and then we give our tips for the weekend and what we're looking forward to at the end. We're also going to get into a quiz that we do every week. We'll explain that when we get to it. Usually what we do is we break down the Premier League match by match. Of course, it's not a Premier League weekend, the FA Cup on this weekend, but never fear. My co-host is going to take you through where you should be keeping your eye in the FA Cup, the games you should be watching and the bets you should be making later on. And we're also going to be previewing the Six Nations. I know it's a bit early, guys. We're a week out from it, but we've got one of our biggest shows of the year next week because it is the Super Bowl, and we're going to be devoting the show to that. So I wanted to discuss the Six Nations and do it properly, and there's only one way we can do it here on Paddy's New Yacht. That is to bring in our man, who is a highlight reel of entertainment. If you've never listened to him before, Neil Keegan of the Couch Pundit podcast and every other podcast he's doing these days.
Yeah.
So Neil Keegan is going to be joining us. Keego is going to be back to give us the preview of the Six Nations and kind of digest whether Ireland should be looking forward to a Grand Slam or should be nervous if the wheels are going to fall apart. But first, we're going to get kicked off with the news from the week because, guys, we have a sports show where we cover pretty much all the sports we're interested in, which is all the sports. But at the same time, we only have an hour to get through it. So what we do every week is we take the 5 biggest sports stories that are piquing our interest. We put them all together. We put a minute on the clock for each and put them all together in a package. We call it the 5 and 5, and we give our sporting hot takes on it. It's going to get underway now because the top 4 race heated up in the Premier League last week as United beat Brighton and Arsenal beat Chelsea to cut the gap to just 3 points, with Spurs needing to rely on a late goal to get them out of jail against Fulham, or else it'll look even more bleak. City and Liverpool look safe, but call it now, Dave, and fill out the top 4.
Champions, Manchester City. Second, Liverpool by maybe a point or two. Bit of a gap to third where you have Spurs. And in fourth place, because it's where they live, Arsenal. Okay,
interesting. I think Chelsea are falling apart. I think Chelsea are falling apart. I think, City, Pool, I like United. They're doing well. I like them. I'm not saying they're going to finish third. I think Spurs have enough about them, but there's the Harry Kane injury, and they looked so ropey against Fulham last week, and that's going to take them to March. That's 2 months of like ropey form. I do like Arsenal after getting the win against Chelsea. Do I trust them to be consistent enough? I'm going to go Spurs, Man United. I see Chelsea dropping off. This is Sarri calling out Eden Hazard. That is not a strategy that's worked well for Chelsea managers in the past. And Hazard also rumoured to want out as well. So I can see the wheels coming off Chelsea. I trust Man United under Solskjaer. This is recency bias, but I trust them under Solskjaer a bit more than I trust Arsenal consistency-wise under Emery. But that's going to change week in, week out up until the end of the season, and that's why we watch. It's exciting. Moving on.
Interesting. On to tennis and the Australian Open finals are this weekend. Rafael Nadal this morning, about an hour ago, stormed his way to the men's decider. He's probably going to face Djokovic in that, while in the women's, Naomi Osaka looks to go back-to-back when she takes on Petra Kvitova in the women's. Who you got? You're a tennis fan? Yeah, big tennis guy.
I was watching the Nadal match. He looked I had Djokovic all week for this. Once I had Federer and Williams earlier in the week, but then of course they both went out. I had Djokovic all week, and then I looked at Nadal. And Nadal, when he's playing, when he's on form, keep in mind he beat Tsitsipas, who is the guy who knocked out Federer, and he absolutely just stormed him. He walked all over him. So Nadal, when he's playing, is the best player in the world. Djokovic seems to be having rants and having tests where he doesn't need to have tests. So I'm going to pick Nadal for the men's. I've got Naomi Osaka to win the women's. I think we're starting a new kind of Martina Hingis, where it's like a young sensation coming along quietly, just storming majors. I think Osaka's going to do it for the women. Any thoughts yourself?
No, I agree with both of them. Just from watching Nadal, I said, like once Federer went out, my thought went to Nadal because, as you mentioned, Djokovic can be very up and down, both on and off court. And Nadal was it the 8 games in a row today. I want to
Yeah.
say in the semi-final. Like that's just pure domination. That's what that's what proper champions do. They just put the foot on the throat and don't lift off.
Yeah, this is it. At the time when the legs start to get weary, Nadal seems to be improving. So, that's swung it for me. Moving on, anyway, despite it being one of the most dramatic weekends in NFL history, it's tough not to feel a bit lackluster as the Rams advance to the Super Bowl after one of the worst pass interference no calls against the Saints, while the Patriots beat the Chiefs in overtime, despite the Chiefs not getting a shot on offense. Should the NFL look at rule changes in the wake of this, or is that just sport?
Well, I think it's more a case of the AFC game that you should look at rule change because in the NFC, the Saints and the Rams, the rule was fine. The rule was excellent because it was clear DPI. It was the referee's mistake. It wasn't the rules' fault per se. In the AFC, listen, like we've had this overtime argument. There's always one or two every year where you're like, a toss of a coin shouldn't decide something like that. But the NFL is a team game. It's not just who has the best offense. And Patrick Mahomes didn't get the ball because of just the way the coin flipped. Patrick Mahomes didn't get the ball because his defense couldn't make a stop. It's more than just offense in the NFL. I do think there is probably a better way to do it than a toy toss. Maybe it's, I don't know, yards in regular time, but I don't think there should be as much. Like I get where their anger is, but it's always been like this.
I think there should be. Personally, I think in the NFL they review everything these days. So why not pass interference? Like why not make that something you can throw a flag for? Same rules as reviews for everything else, but that was egregious. And the sad part is that we have to feel shit about the Super Bowl because we know the Rams won't be there. We know the Rams don't deserve to be there because if the pass interference had been called, the Saints could have simply ran out the clock. And I think I was listening to, I think it was the Bill Simmons podcast last night, and they figured it out where the Saints would have had maximum 16 seconds on the clock after the Rams score, or the Rams would have had 16 seconds on the clock after the Saints scoring an almost definite field goal in the range they would have been left in with a first down after the pass interference call. I think if something changes the outcome of the Super Bowl, I think you need to look at the rules there. Overtime is ridiculous. It's dramatic, and that's what the NFL is there for, and it's why it makes it so delightful at times. But I hate the NFL overtime rules. Why not just have a full period of overtime? Like if some team decides to run the ball and is able to control the ball and control the game for 15 minutes and the offense doesn't get back on, that's fair enough because they controlled it for the allotted time. But first goal wins in a game where the offense, one offense can only be on the field at times, that doesn't work. So I think overtime needs to be straightforward and simple, like football, just one period, just 15 minutes on the clock and let them play it out. If you want to do the regular season the current way, I could go for it because regular season games mean less. But playoffs are a team season is coming down to this. And to be honest, I do feel lackluster. I'm trying to get excited, and I will be excited by this time next week. But Rams Pats, it's not the Super Bowl I had in mind. It's not the Super Bowl I wanted. It went completely against my calls, and that's not why I'm annoyed because I don't mind it. But I just can't feel. I feel like both teams got through by a stroke of luck. And I know that made it dramatic, and I know it was close games, but I can't help but feel that, especially with the Rams, I'm like, they don't deserve to be there. The Saints should be there right now. It's tough not to feel aggrieved. I think there should be changes. If it's that big, if it's the Super Bowl and people are like, yeah, but like, do these teams deserve to be here? That's a problem, and that's where you need to look inward. I hope the NFL will, though. They have held their hands up, to be fair, since the Rams call. And said, look, we got that wrong. So I'm hopeful there's changes, but we'll see.
Yeah, I know we've already probably gone over five already, lads. This is what usually happens if it's the first time listening.
It's in theory.
Apologies. It's in theory. It's like, and a great point made with an NFL fan at work during the week. It's like the Champions League final coming down to Real Madrid against Barcelona, and Real Madrid scored the first penalty, and that's it. Barcelona don't get another shot. That's all it was. Every other game, like every other possible pairing probably had a storyline to it involving the players. So Saints against Patriots, which is what it should have been. You had Breeze against Brady, both over 42 of the best of all time. Saints against Chiefs, Mahomes in the Super Bowl in his first major year. Like, that's incredible. Whereas now you're like, Jared Goff, like the only story I can try and maybe come out of is Belichick against McVay, student against apprentice, whatever you want to say. But
there's no shortage of storylines. There's no. To be fair, Rams-Pats is a perfectly valid Super Bowl if the Rams deserve to be there. Keep in mind that when the Pats won their first Super Bowl under Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, who'd they beat? They beat the Rams.
Yeah, good point.
There is a lot of narrative there, but it's just tough to feel excited over a team who shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? After the whole season, after investing so much in it, to know that one of the teams definitely shouldn't be there because of a blatant call that the refs just bottled is just shit. But we'll get excited and we will talk about it next week in depth because we do need to move on. We move way over. Again, guys, 1 minute in theory.
On to the UFC, and Henry Cejudo gave a really good example of why the UFC should keep the flyweight division after destroying TJ Dillashaw in just over half a minute. But can you see Dana White? Obviously, Demetrius Johnson held the belt for over 2,000 days. And it got a bit boring. What do you think is next up for the UFC flyweight division?
I disagree completely with the question. I don't think he made a great example. Like, the flyweight division had always had great fighters. Demetrius Johnson's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters ever in UFC history. That was kind of the problem.
True.
There's not competitors for it. There's not a division there. There's not enough fighters, whereas lads who have to cut weight a lot to get to 125 pounds can just not cut as much weight and fight at 135 in a more competitive division. You can have either two kind of light divisions or you can have one stacked division. So I think they should still get rid of it. I don't think they can now because that fight was billed as a fight for the division because I think the UFC thought TJ Dillashaw was going to knock him out. And then Henry Cejudo is an amazing fighter. I think he should go up to 135 and I think he should challenge for the 135 title, and then they should retire the flyweight division quietly because there's just not a division there. It's not compelling. It doesn't sell. No one cares about it, and we've seen it cleaned out by Demetrius Johnson. So it's like, who should Cejudo fight next? Joseph Benavidez. Well, we've seen him fight 3 times for the belt and lose. Like, that's not a division. That's not enough. So for me, they need to get rid of it. It's not a comment on the quality of the flyweights. The flyweights are great, and they will be fantastic at 135 pounds. It's just there's not a division there.
Yeah, like, I was thinking about it during the week and afterwards, and it's very much like the thing that I immediately went to was the Universal Championship in WWE. Les has held it for so long, and like, obviously it's like they're both legitimate real sports. Don't no one tell Corporate Keen, but like it was that kind of problem where like it's not Lesnar's fault, it's just how it was, and like it's not really Johnson's fault, it's just how the division was. So like, I think maybe in the long term you're probably right.
Moving on, and finally, the Heineken Cup quarterfinals were confirmed last week as Leinster will meet Ulster on the proposed Brexit weekend, if it actually ends up happening, while Munster will travel to Edinburgh. Will we see an Irish winner, though?
Oh, I really don't know. It's very much like usually this is the case where I talk up Leinster or talk up Munster. Leinster this year, they're not as strong as last year, I don't think. Obviously, they've been missed Sexton for here and there. Like they were laboured a bit last weekend in the game against Wasps. They still won comfortably because they're still on that high level, but I don't know if they have enough to win it, particularly with the likes of the French and Racing 92. They really seem to be steaming as well. Like, Ulster could shock them in the Aviva. I don't think they will. There's a possibility. Munster away at Edinburgh, if they can get past that, which they probably should, they'll be confident, especially with, I think they've got a home semi-final in that case, which will be obviously not in Thomond, going by the rules. It'll be in possibly Park and Queeve. So will we have an Irish winner? I don't think so. I think maybe Racing, if not the Saracens, but like they're as always, there's possibilities.
For newer listeners, for freeloaders, guys, I'm not a club rugby guy. I'm one of those. I'm one of those type of fans that like quote unquote real rugby fans hate. I love international rugby. I'm not a big club guy, so I couldn't tell you. I'll probably watch the Leinster Munster or Leinster Ulster game, and I'll keep an eye on Munster. But like, really, I'm not the best person to answer this. But I do want to talk about international rugby. And would you look at that? The Six Nations is around the corner. People may say it's a bit early, but we've got a big show next week with the Super Bowl. And, of course, there was the launch of the Guinness Six Nations this week. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's never too early to start getting hyped because the Six Nations kicks off next week. Ireland kick off with a blockbuster opening game against England. So we're going to preview it all now, and then we're going to give you our week to weeks and what we're keeping an eye out for as we go on. But whenever we do one of these big previews, when we're talking about Irish rugby, there's only one man for the job. He is the Couch Pundit podcast's own Neil Keegan, and he's joining us on the line right now to help break it all down. Keego, still a good 9 days away from it all. How are fever levels? Are excitement levels reaching fever pitch?
You know yourself, lads, and good afternoon, good evening, and good night wherever you are. Hello from sunny Bray. You know yourself. It's kind of like when you're climbing Mount Everest, right? You know that there's the last effort. You know yourselves from the climbing you've done in your lives.
Of course.
And you've got to mentally prepare for it. You can't peak too soon. You know, much like your Deb's night, we can't peak too soon. So at the moment, it's trying to keep a fairly steady heart rate, fairly steady pulse rate, because we know that in, was it 8 days now, 9 days, 8 days? And it's not just any old opening. It's not just we're playing Italy, we're playing Scotland. You know, it's not a normal thing. The fucking English are coming. And I'd love to be more grown up than I actually am. But whenever the English are in town, it's a different game. So it's not just a normal start. And then we've got the things afterwards. So now that you've started talking about it, I'm getting a bit excited. It might be just your voice. I'm not too sure.
I do have a very exciting voice.
Yeah, very exciting voice. But yeah, we're calmly strolling forward to the start of the Six Nations, trying to keep calm with our pot of coffee beside us.
You talked about peaking too early there, and I guess a lot of people's concerns with that will be, have Ireland peaked too early? Because that's the story as we know it in recent years, to our heartbreak. We do really well, and we're in or around the best teams in the world, and then it's World Cup year, we're all getting psyched up, convincing ourselves we're going to win it all, and then the Six Nations hits, and the wheels start to come off a little bit. Where are the fears? Look, last time we spoke was when Ireland beat New Zealand and pretty much solidified ourselves. I know the rankings don't say as much, but we solidified, for my money and a lot of other people's money, we played them at their own game, we beat them, and that solidified us as the best team in the world right now. But it doesn't matter right now. It matters in September. So what do we need to be looking out for here with this Six Nations campaign? Will anything less than a Grand Slam be considered a failure and be cause for concern going into the World Cup?
Well, there's a couple of things, and you're dead right. We've built ourselves up only for everything to fall off, and kind of I'm sure your therapist would have told you the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over again, expecting different results. You know what I mean? So that's certainly what's been shouted at me over the years. But the things that have changed since the last World Cup, right? So we were very excited in the last World Cup. If you take that as the starting point of the kind of the Joe changing everything era, if you get me. So we rolled through the group stages, we beat France, everyone was crying, and then we get to the knockout stages and we had no players, injuries, and I think there was a couple of suspensions in that game too. We ended up with I think O'Mahony played on the wing at different points. It just fell apart. So Joe goes, right, I can't do this anymore. I can't emotionally handle doing this anymore. The people of Ireland can't emotionally handle it anymore. They're fickle emotionally already. So what he started at that point, so on the plane home, he started going, right, we need a squad, not just a team. And I think we spoke about it before. In certain sports you can get away with just having a team. And a bit of luck and a lack of injuries, you'll get through it. And that's where Ireland was. There was on the team sheet, during Nadia O'Sullivan days, even going back to the Gatland days, there was, out of the 15 on the pitch, there was probably 10 people forever on that team sheet, and 5 people jiggling about there for a position. Whereas now, if you look at every position, we've got at least 3 fairly savage people who can slip in. Like, we've got our second row issue at the moment, which is the example of it. Our starters are Toner and Ryan, absolute savages in the second row, especially Toner's come back from the dead, not the dead, but he's having his best season in a long time. So I don't know how he's done it, but he's doing it. And we have our backups of Tyke Byrne, Ian Henderson, and then there's a couple of others there. Delan can do it. There's a couple other guys. but the two backups have gone. So they slip in Quinn Rue from Connacht, who scored a try last week, had a man of the match performance last week for Connacht. And then you've got Ulton Deland, who can do the job as well. He's coming back from personal family issues which kept him out of the game. So this is the example. So the media is going to drive Jesus, everything's going to fall apart again, and we're all going to turn on Joe. That's the media thing to get everyone excited. If you look at it logically, with my brain trauma, I can see it. You kind of go, right, we have cover in every position. Most of the positions, it's pretty close in terms of cover. Some it's not. For example, Conor Murray is 100 million miles ahead of anyone who's going to be backing him up. Now, that doesn't mean the backups are bad, but it just means there's a big gap there. But if you look at the team, you look at the backups, we're not going to go to the World Cup and kind of hang on and hope. We're going to go and be ready to rock and roll. Now, coming back a few months from that to the Six Nations, is anything other than a Grand Slam a failure? Well, that's not a bad position to be in, is it? When was the last time Ireland went to any competition, whether it's table tennis or, whatever, lap dancing, whatever the championship is.
We are
for
good
that.
at the old lap dancing, I have to say.
Yeah. Some of us are better than others.
Girls
but,
doing
we'll
the
save
spread.
that for another podcast. Yeah. But you kind of go, right, we've never gone into a competition going, Jesus, a Grand Slam is what we expect. Yeah. That's not a bad place to be. Now, will we get it? Probably not. But there's certain things that need to happen for us to come out of this happy. And it starts in 8 days. We have to start off by putting them away, not just because of who they are, but because everyone's coming for our scalp now. So we've got to do that.
Yeah, it's a good point as well you make about how we're in an excellent position to say that, look, a Grand Slam, even if we don't get it, that's still fine. But it's a good point as well that I think Joe Schmidt just wants a clean bill of health coming out of even next weekend. He'll be okay if we just have the number one and number two choices still available and someone hasn't gone down with a crippling knee injury or something like that. And as you mentioned, the backups that we have as well. Yeah, look, in the main positions, Sexton, Murray, they're still a good bit ahead. But then you look at the Champions Cup, for example, last weekend, when the backups really kind of stood up and be counted, like the Luke McGraths, the Joey Carbys as well. So we do have that kind of level. And England, of course, coming as well. The last 2 years, 2017, 2018, it's been England at last, and there's been Grand Slam implications both last year when we won it in Twickenham and the year before when we stopped them doing it in the Aviva. So having this real high intensity, the old enemy game first, I think Joe just wants to clean bill of health coming out of it.
Well, let's
100%. You've hit the nail on the head. Sorry to jump in there, but that's the extra thing that we haven't had before. Going into this big hyped up World Cup, we want to win the Six Nations, but we also want everyone to be fit and healthy. Getting on the plane, for the World Cup. The question now is, would you take a loss in the Six Nations if everyone's fit on the plane? And you kind of go, well, yeah, you would. I don't want to lose any. I don't want to get walked over in any game because the players have been rested. But I think if the lads, generally the injury profile is pretty good on the Irish team. There's a couple of freak injuries, like Henderson injured another finger. He had surgery on his thumb, which he came back, 6 weeks early from man of the match performance, and then his other finger starts hurting him. I've never heard of a rugby player having a sore finger keeping him off the pitch, but he's going to be ready to rock and roll in week 2. That's the extra psychological thing that Joe has to sleep with at night. Is he gonna? Because the team selection for the first 2 weeks has been really interesting. It's gonna mean there's even more people who are going to have a tracksuit on going to the World Cup, which is great. But then, is it going to cost us a game in the Six Nations? Jesus, I'm excited now, lads. This is all your fault.
And we haven't even got into breaking down the teams. Well, you spoke about sore fingers and possibly keeping out there. Let's look at our first opponents, England, because they're sweating on the fitness of Owen Farrell, of course, who injured his thumb during the week. He expects to be fit now, he has said. And Dylan Hartley, of course, the other co-captain, is expected to miss the whole campaign, or at least a good chunk of it, with another injury. So England are coming into this a bit banged up. The Barbs have started. Eddie Jones, of course, never short for a quote, coming out and saying that Sexton has a bat phone to the referee, though. Joe Schmidt did confirm that he did walk by him in the corridor at the launch and was like, right, we're going to start this. The shit talking's going to start. But we do host England first at home. could that be a disadvantage for us? And that, like, we're not getting the banged up England who are, like, under pressure to get a result like we got the last time on Paddy's weekend when we completed the Grand Slam, of course. We're getting a team that are coming in on a relative high. They seem to be peaking well as well. A week before we beat New Zealand, they nearly beat New Zealand. So they'll be looking for a scalp. How much should we fear them, or should the injuries and their kind of concerns, would that be enough to kind of sway the tie in our favour?
Well, if you go man for man, and I think the King of Ireland, Brian O'Driscoll, was saying this on radio the other day. He was asked by an English journalist, which of the English squad would you put a green jersey on if you could? And he couldn't think of anyone. So, if you look at any position, like if you break it down, the front row, okay, it's the Leinster front row. With Roy Best in there, there's medals all over the scrum. There's medals all over the back line. England are coming. In fairness to them, they are kind of slowly coming back. They're not there yet. They did well in November. A lot of things went for them, which in terms of even Farrell and his tackling went for him in November, which the referee is now going to be watching him. So he's now, if he was going to do it at any stage in terms of not actually trying to tackle people, just trying to shoulder people's heads off, he should have done it in either the Six Nations or the World Cup. Whereas he did it too soon, everyone's watching him now. If we're going to beat any team, we're going to beat, whether it's New Zealand, whether it's England, whether it's Italy, whoever, all the way through to the World Cup final when we win the thing, we are going to want to beat the best team that they can put out. That's it. It's in any sport, whatever your team is, whatever your sport is. You're talking about the Super Bowl next week. One team doesn't want to beat a team of jobbers by 100 points. That's not sport. That's not a test of what you've been doing, for building up to this moment on the pitch. That's not what it's about. It's about testing yourself. And there will be a test, certainly early. I don't think England have fitness. I don't think England have the ability to manage a game and make the right decisions at the right time, like Ireland do. I don't think England have the skill to do it. I think they're going to try and get in a bit of a scrap. The Irish pack are well up for that. New Zealand were going to try it as well, but they were shut down. You look at Leinster last week against Wasps. Wasps will try. Now Wasps are leveled down, and not a real example, but in terms of shutting them down and strangling them, I call it Leinster Jitsu. I think it's going to be Ireland Jitsu. It's going to be like a wet blanket, just smothering England and just frightening the good decisions out of them. That's how Ireland play. That's how Leinster play. They're coming at you so much. The fitness is there. They're never going to disappear. And you go, Jesus, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I can't run into this wall again. It's hurting me. I can't kick it over them because there's Jordan Larmour or Rob Kearney back there just waiting for it. And then it's just like, I can't manage what's going on in front of me. And I think that'll hit England. I think they're improving, but they're not where they should be.
Like, it's a massive situation for Eddie Jones as well, because obviously 2016 started off brilliantly in his first year with the Grand Slam. Year after that, left it behind them, some might argue, in Dublin. And then last year, an absolute disaster where they actually won their first two games and still finished fifth. All undone by Scotland, of course, initially. And then another couple of defeats after that just really left him in trouble. So he's under a bit of pressure, especially coming into a World Cup year as well, where he's like, geez, if I come out looking out at this pretty bad, I could be in serious trouble if I don't deliver the World Cup again. So there's he's going to have his players up for it. He's going to have a squad up for it. If we can just kind of stop that early, stop that intensity and get that pressure down and get the pressure back on Eddie Jones, might work out better in the long run coming into November or September, I should say.
Any time you can push the opposition back, especially after the mess that Eddie Jones is doing, and I don't think it's working as well from this year. I think everyone kind of expected going right. Okay, the launch was yesterday, and you kind of go right. Give Eddie the mic. It's going to be a bit of crack. You know what I mean? He was talking about playing. He's like your drunk granddad at karaoke. You just don't know. You don't know what song he's going to pick. It's probably going to be "Dirty" by Christina Aguilera, and you don't want to watch it, but it's going to be hilarious because he'll probably break a hip. That's kind of where Eddie Jones is at the moment in terms of his pre-match banter.
I'm not kind of that worried. I think if we were playing England and Twickenham, look, we should be worried. Opening game, they're looking for a scalp. We're still settling into the tournament. Playing them in the Aviva, I think we can go into that. We'll discuss it more next week as well, but I think we can go into that relatively confident. One game I am nervous about is the next game, Scotland. Because they're, like, when you look at teams peaking at the right times and looking for a scalp, in Scotland you have, like, kind of an infusion of young blood and experienced heads. Of course, it's a big period for Scottish club rugby as well. It's the first time ever there's been 2 Scottish teams in the Heineken Cup quarter-finals, with Edinburgh and Glasgow both making it, of course. They seem to be peaking at the right time, and the big statistic that kind of sways me is that they've taken out every team that's travelled to Murrayfield the past 2 championships. We travelled there second after the bruising opener to England. Should we be nervous of an upset here? Could this be the one that kind of knocks off our Grand Slam hopes?
Well, this is the beauty. This is the beauty of the entire competition. There's 6 nations. There's 3 hefty games. Okay, there's England, there's Scotland, and there's Wales. Wales are the 3rd best team in the world. I know there's only really 7 people in the world rankings, but like they're the 3rd best team in the world. They're the sleepers for this tournament. Scotland are on the way up, yes. I think their plan is to aim at 2023. I think we said this before, guys. They're on the way. They're on the way back. They have a long-term plan. They're great to watch, but if you look at their fixtures or their results over the last kind of 2 years or so, haven't been consistent. So you might get the best Scotland team ever, or they might be the drizzling you-know-whats. Ireland are too good to kind of let that happen. You know what I mean? I'm just having a quick gander here at their last few. Like they've lost to Wales, but then they've put on decent scores, but they haven't played anyone. Like they played America, they played Argentina, and I think they were 44-15 winners there. Argentina are not the force they once were. Yeah. They beat Fiji. They let Fiji score 17 points. They lost to South Africa, who are on the way back. They're another team for chat about in September. They played Argentina twice in their last few games. So it's not, they're on the way back. They're on the way up, whatever it is. 2023, they're going to be a worry. Right now, they're a team that we should be beating, regardless of location.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, this was also the case. I'll make the point that it was also the case in 2017, the last time we went to Murrayfield, and we kind of got a bit shell-shocked then. In that game. The only thing, and especially this year as well, the week before, obviously, we start with England, France start on the Friday night with Wales, but Scotland have Italy at home in Murrayfield. That is the perfect fixture you want to start any Six Nations game, because it's a nice easy one where you can get your backs going, you can even kind of bring a couple of the forwards in to bash them around, get them warmed up, and then suddenly you've got the big lads, the tournament favourites, which is another thing about Ireland. We never got into a Six Nations as favourites before, if my memory is correct. And then suddenly there's an opportunity just to remind everyone. I think you're right when you say that Wales are the ones we should be worrying about, but Scotland are kind of like, they've always been this little scrappy team that they get the odd result, whereas, as you mentioned, I think they are probably looking towards 2023, but this would be a nice way to start it.
Like, Scotland have nothing to lose at all, and that's a dangerous position to play a team who has nothing to lose. Well, whatever your sport is, you know what I mean? Like, any team playing Man United has nothing to lose, or not Man United, whoever the top team is. Yeah. Sorry, I'm showing my age there. But yeah, that's a dig for United fans.
Thanks.
But you know what I mean? Whatever the top team is, you know what I mean? Any team playing them has nothing to lose, and they'll always put their best on. Now, every team has been doing that against Ireland since the last Six Nations. So the entire of the last Six Nations through November, all the way in here to Six Nations and into the World Cup. Ireland are the team to beat. Ireland can't be worried about any other team because they know, as we said before, man for man, there's no one on those teams that you would go, right, I'd put a green jersey on them. Maybe a few of them would have a tracksuit on the day. But in terms of starting, if you were to take any of those players and go, I want you in my team for a World Cup final, and I keep saying World Cup final because if you verbalise it, it happens. You know what I mean? You put it out there, it happens. If you will it, dude, it is no dream. So that's a quote from the Big Lebowski. Yeah. But yes, Scotland they're half a banana skin without being disrespectful to them. It's lining up nicely for them, but this isn't their year.
Okay, interesting. Another team whose year I suspect it won't be our next opponent, Italy. We won't spend too long in this, I don't imagine. But Conor O'Shea, one of our own, of course, former Connacht manager, did wonders there, and they hope that Italy would bring him in and do the same. It hasn't really been working out for him. He's possibly playing for his job. There's a lot of talk of them looking elsewhere. His contract is up after these Six Nations. So does he stand a chance with that pressure on his back of pulling off an upset somewhere? Not against us. Let's be realistic here, right? But but not. They're coming to the Aviva. We're going to beat Italy. We should, anyway. And if we don't, fucking panic stations. But at the same time, does he stand a chance of pulling an upset off somewhere here along the lines in the Six Nations?
Short answer, no. Without being, but long answer is it's. I know what you've said is logical and it makes sense and it's 100% accurate. But if you look at, I was listening to him yesterday talking and he was like, yeah, hopefully, he expects the Italian Union to be looking around for people who may take over from him, and then he'll have a chat and see where they are, and if he moves on with them, he moves on with them. But if you look at their results, right, they've been beaten everywhere. But for example, Japan beat South Africa, right, last year. Italy beat Japan. Now, I know it doesn't work like that. Sporting mathematics doesn't work like that, but that's a result. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, Japan also beat Italy as well, so it kind of levels out. But they have had a little bit of a, they have improved, but unfortunately everybody else is improving probably a little bit quicker. You know what I mean? The rate of improvement is too quick for them. They can't keep up. They don't have the players, but it's just not going to happen for them. And the problem is then, do we go, right, we want Italy and Georgia, or Italy and Romania to play off for that last spot in the Six Nations. And I don't have an in with the old dears in Dublin 4 and Balls Bridge, but I know they'd rather go to Rome than Georgia. So I think as long as that remains the same, Italy will remain in the competition and get smashed up.
Okay, yeah, well, look, I think that's pretty much set. Oh, I'd love a good scalp. Like, beating the English on week 4 would be interesting. I'm just saying, but it's realistically not going to happen. Another team who I'm kind of trying to weigh up, because, again, we're more like judging these historically, because we spoke before on the show about how France are like the anti-Ireland, and that we spoke earlier about Ireland, how we tend to peak just before the year before our World Cup, and then the wheels come off. France are the opposite, as we said before. They're the team who, like, will play shy for 3 years, and then in the World Cup year, magically they're back. They peak at the right time. But they come into this also, like last year, finished 4th in the Six Nations. Autumn, they won 1 of 3 internationals, so they did play well, to be fair to them. Do you think that there is a lot of optimism about the side in this, but do you think that that's more historically based, or do you think there's some basis for it and that France are a team we should fear? Again, keeping in mind that they travel to us, so we're playing them in the Aviva. Do you think we should give them a healthy respect, or do you think that this is just, we're basing this all on history?
Their last match, they lost to Fiji.
Yeah.
I love Fiji, and look, I love Italy, I love pizza, but they're not, at the moment, it's not happening for them. Again, it's a long-term deal. They're starting, like after that Fiji game, they started turning on each other. Now, the France spite and, self-arrogance or whatever that pops in during, whether it's football or rugby, where they kind of go, we're going to do it anyway. I don't care who the coach is. We're just going to give it a bash, and generally they do well when they do it that way. They like their coach, they like their new coach, they like the way it's going, but it's just players are starting to pop in. They're bringing in new players. They're minimizing the non-French nationals, whatever it is. Yeah, they're minimizing that or trying to bring that down a wee bit to bring more French people into the game, which is going to take time. They're always a threat. They're always not always great to watch. Most of the time they're great to watch. You can tell, and you will be able to tell on the Friday night when they're playing Wales, which is a massive opener. I can't wait for that. If you look when they're singing that French national anthem, if Bastero looks fit, then they're working. They're interested.
Right.
If he looks like a fat baby,
which is more often than not.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the tell, and he won't go past 50 minutes. The whole thing falls over. Like, so he's the marker on the lineups on the Friday night. Are we to worry about France? We're to worry about everyone. But like, you know what I mean? If you're talking about, are they a threat? No.
You spoke there about, and I noticed that you said we might not win a Grand Slam. Maybe some doubts, maybe some reservations. You've also spoke about Wales. as the big threat. Of course, the final weekend, we travel to the Principality Stadium against
Yes.
Wales. They open with a trip to Paris. That's going to tell us a lot about it, but also as well what it could be. If it's one of these scrappy Six Nations where every team loses a fixture and it's all going down to the last game, like that Paris fixture could give them motivation and make it must win for them. If we come in with 4 wins, maybe we're overconfident as well. So you have to weigh all this up as well. They'll be missing Lee Halfpenny for the French game and the Italy game afterwards. He's suffering from concussion at the moment, so that's going to be a big blow to them. But it's also Warren Gatlin's last Six Nations, and it's going to be on Paddy's weekend as well. So it's going to be fever pitch for us. But how much, like, is this the one? This is the one you're worried about. This is the one where you think they could scalp us. Do you think Warren Gatland as well? It seems like they just have more of a story going into this. Just in terms of media narrative alone, how realistic is it on the pitch that we should fear Wales and we should fear this game?
It's quite realistic. And they're the games we have to be in. You know what I mean? As soon as I saw the fixture list and I saw we're going to Wales, last game of the tournament, I was going, jeez, it's going to be like 2009. I can't do it.
Oh.
And you kind of, I won't be. I will have a heart attack if it comes down to a kick like that again. Can't do it. I'm just saying now. So you may need to get a new sexy rugby correspondent after the Six Nations. Thank you for saying that unprompted. That's very nice of you. But yeah, so Wales are the threat. Wales are. They kind of went up and down and things like that. Gatland was away in November. He had a family issue as well. So they kind of were left in their own little space of the world, which Wales is anyway. They were kind of left there to kind of work on things and figure things out. And they are back. They are a threat to whatever competition they're in. They're great to watch. They're always up for a scrap. They've gotten rid of the people they should have gotten rid of in terms of the old ones, the older players, and some of the younger guys coming in. Like they're coming off a perfect record, just like us. Their last defeat is us by 10 points last year. If everything goes to form, and I know sport doesn't work like that, but we're looking at an event in Wales more than a rugby game because it is weeks away from the World Cup that we're going to win. Will it, dude? It is no dream. That is going to be our final indicator of where we are before we go into that World Cup run-in.
Yeah, and obviously games against Wales historically always thought, you mentioned 09, let's not forget Stephen Jones, if that kick goes over the bar and not a couple of inches short, Wales are champions instead of Ireland. And that defeat stung Gatland for a couple of years, and obviously in 2011 in the World Cup they got revenge in pretty brutal fashion. But even look at last year, Wales were on just inside our half, maybe 30 metres out, and then we got stocked as a deception. If they had gone a bit further and one line break, suddenly there's no Grand Slam, suddenly everything's changed when we got the interception. So if it is that kind of situation again, I personally don't think it will be, because I like France on the Friday night. If it was in Cardiff, I'd be worried, but it's in Paris.
But when you say that, if my auntie had a bollocks, she'd be my uncle. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But
Stockdale was watching them all day for that. He missed 3 of them before he got one of them. Now they could have scored on the other 3, but he was obviously given. They had seen something, and that was the beauty of that game. You kind of go right. He got his fingertips on the ball twice. He missed one entirely. That was the one he was due to get. Now he may have gotten one of the other 3, and the whole rest of the game changes. I was beyond happy that he was able to read it and catch it and go. But he is the magic. Anytime he's near a ball, within arm's reach of a ball, he's got a 14-foot wingspan, absolute Nordy freak. Anytime he's near a ball, everyone on the opposition goes, Jesus, Stockdale has the ball. And then you look around, you got Larmer's the same. And then you look in the midfield, you got Ringrose, who's a leader now. He's exactly the same. So there's 3 threats before we get into our 9 and 10 and our pack and all that sort of stuff. And that's different to previous years. We can talk about kind of Wales were building and building and building. They couldn't finish it off that day. Now, they were playing really well, but they couldn't finish it off. And Stockdale was able to read them. Now, if you can read a team once, you can figure it out twice. It's just going to be hair on the back of your neck if you've got a hairy neck stuff.
Right, so Keego, when it all comes down to
image there, sorry.
Money where our mouth is time, right? Are we going to do this? And the question we always ask you, Are you more excited and confident about this now after we've had a chat about it and broken it down a bit? Or are you more nervous that this will be the time where it all starts to start the show? How are you feeling right now, having broken it down with us a week out from it all beginning?
Okay, the wager is, right, Ireland, Grand Slam.
Love it.
If not, if they do, you buy me a pint.
Okay.
If they don't, I'll buy the pair of you a Guinness.
Okay, fair enough. Right.
At one of your parties.
That means Rick gets 2 free Guinness.
Wait a minute. Yes. No. Ordinary level max. Hang on.
But we'll buy you two. We'll buy you a pint each, and you can buy me a Guinness, and you can get Dave a G&T or whatever. Right. It's just always entertaining, and guys, he's going to be keeping you updated on his own podcast as well, and on every other podcast. He's going to be on Talk Nerdy to Me in the coming weeks with Jerry. So keep an eye out for that.
Oh yeah.
I believe shit went down. I've yet to hear it. I believe that I got absolutely slated during it. So I'm looking forward to that all the same. And also, so what else are you on? Keego, you're on every podcast. You're on all the podcasts.
I'm an absolute hooer for a podcast. I love getting in people's ears. You know what I mean? So, yeah. If anyone is looking for a bit of accompaniment on their podcast, I'm the man. But yeah, there's a rugby show we do every week called Three Blokes, a Ball and Bod. It's on Facebook. We do like a video show every week. So this week we're breaking down last week's rugby and looking forward, like you guys are, to the Six Nations. And then I was talking to Jerry there the other night where we just threw grenades and started civil wars everywhere. So that's going to be fantastic for everyone to hear. Always great to chat to Jerry and Dave. And then talking to Dynamo about wrestling, which I don't know a lot about, but talk to him about that.
There you go.
And then we're just rolling around here, plugging everything and getting involved everywhere,
There you go. And your Twitter handle for anyone who wants to give you a follow and keep you on a day-to-day basis.
For abuse, compliments, incriminating pictures, @Keegan on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram, but I'm not going to give that to you because it's mostly me and my beard, so you don't need to see that.
It's a lot.
But yeah, follow me on the Twitter, and we'll have a banter.
All right, Keego, always a pleasure. Can't wait. We'll chat later in the Six Nations. Hopefully, if it starts getting dramatic, and we need some positivity. We need that endless, boundless patriotism coming in. But Keego, we'll be keeping an eye out for you. Thanks a million for joining us, and enjoy the Six Nations. Woo!
Absolutely, you too, lads. Cheers.
Let's do this. There you have it, guys. That's all to look forward to from next week. Big show next week. First weekend of the Six Nations Premier League back Super Bowl. It's going to be huge. I cannot wait. But for this week, we have to settle for the FA Cup, which I'm just not. I can't get hyped for the FA Cup anymore. Don't get me wrong. Can't wait for Arsenal United on Friday. I'm going to be watching that. It's on BBC. I cannot wait for it. And it's going to be an absolute banger of a game. And you know why I'm excited for it? Because it'll give me some indication of who's best place to challenge for the top 4 in the Premier League. So Saul's FA Cup, you're just not doing it for me this year. Kento, you are keeping an eye on proceedings though, so give us maybe try get me excited about it, or tell me at least what I can put some money on.
Even I can't sell you shit on a stick, which is what the FA Cup fourth round is really with the draw. I mean, listen, it's the beauty and the horrors of the open draw. The beauty, you've got Arsenal United. The horrors, you've also got something like Portsmouth and QPR where you're like, no. Who doesn't support those teams is going to watch that. But I am going to try and give you a bet. I'm going to go for Millwall at home to Everton. Everton are far too inconsistent for me. Yeah. Millwall struggling as well in the Championship, but they're at home in the Lions Den. Historically, particularly in the FA Cup as well, somewhere where upsets happen. I've got Crystal Palace on Sunday to beat Spurs. I think Spurs' injury crisis, as you mentioned, we're playing excellent against Fulham. I don't think they really want to look at the FA Cup. I think they know now that they're going to have a battle on their hands to stay in the top 4 because the Sharks are closing in terms of Arsenal United. Maybe not Chelsea. And tonight might tell a lot as well. The Carabao Cup, obviously, we're recording Thursday morning, so we won't know. There could be another injury tonight. I don't know what team they'll put out then. They could have a tired team on Sunday, so Palace are right for the upset. And then what else have I got? I have got a draw between Doncaster and Oldham going by pure form in the league. I've kind of been keeping an eye on League One, both around mid-table. Doncaster kind of a bit better playing style. Oldham scrappy enough, but that's what I've had to resort to try and get some value here. But I've also got a special bet, and I've gone for it's Royal Rumble weekend, as anyone who's probably listening to this will know. And I've gone for Mustafa Ali to be in the Iron Man and last the longest time at 4-1.
You fucking hipster.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're such a hipster.
Why else have they been building them up?
It's all for the Royal Rumble. It'd be an interesting one. I do like it. Corporate Keane picked him for his Final Four as well.
And did he?
I wouldn't be surprised for it. So it's an interesting one. Anyway, the football I'll be keeping an eye on this weekend will be in Europe, because after the Arsenal United game, I'm done with the FA Cup. I'll just watch whatever's on in front of me. I am watching Serie A this weekend. I am keeping an eye, and that's really where all the action is, because it's kind of placeholder weekend in Germany and in Spain and whatnot. And the French league, look, PSG beat Guingamp 9-0 last week. That's over. Thierry Henry, like, the other kind of storyline you keep an interest in is, are Monaco going to get relegated? Thierry Henry, you're better off watching the post-match press conferences and interviews than you are watching the actual games. He had a go with the players last week, but there's not much interest there. So Serie A is where it's at this weekend, because on Saturday night you've got Milan against Napoli, an absolute belter. Napoli will be like, did we not play and win this game just last week, after they knocked off the previous four-place side in Lazio, and their replacements, Milan, are now hosting them in the San Siro in what could be a classic. Gennaro Gattuso's men are back in the Champions League spots, but they face the prospect of not having Gonzalo Higuain for the fight, as his reported move to Chelsea that saw him miss last week's win over Genoa is close to completion. Can young gun Patrick Catone fill in adequately for Higuain? They're big shoes to fill in this Champions League race. They play a Napoli side who can't afford any more slips, as we said last week, as they still sit 9 points behind Juve. Though Ancelotti has them in form despite missing players and rotating the squad, they're playing well. Both sides need to win. That's an absolute banker for me. Then on Sunday, a less compelling game, and one that I'm probably not going to watch because it's going to be the Royal Rumble. Being honest, I'm definitely not going to watch it. I'm going to be in buskers. But if you're sitting at home and if you're looking for something to watch in the evening, you could do worse than Lazio against Juventus. Lazio need a win badly after slipping to 6th following their 2-1 defeat to Napoli last week. What a horrible week to have still undefeated Juve come to town. Simone Inzaghi's side have won just 2 in 9 now, although they did look sprightly after falling 2-0 down last week and threatened to come back before being reduced to 10 men laid on. A loss here, though, could see them fall as far as 8th from 4th just last week if results don't go their way. So they need to put everything they can into holding forward at home and keeping Ronaldo and Co out. However, the same could be said about half the Serie A sides this season, and they haven't been able to. Juve still undefeated. So it's Lazio at home is the one thing to keep an eye on, and could sway it. That's what I'm keeping an eye on in Europe, Dave. What are you keeping an eye on in sport in general this weekend?
Well, the famine is finally over for GA fans, even though the pre-season tournaments have been going on the last few weeks. No one really cares about them. Mm-hmm. So we've got the return of the Allianz Leagues are back. And obviously we talked about the rules over the last few weeks. I think they finally settled on them, so we're able to do it. I'm focusing mainly on the hurling because I'm more of a hurling guy. I think that's open enough. I've been open enough about that even on Twitter. Liam Sheedy returns to the helmet Tipperary. He won the All-Ireland with them in 2010 to stop the historic drive for 5 at Kilkenny. They're against the Clare side, who are being tipped by many for an All-Ireland tilt this year. Then an absolute belter on Sunday. Kilkenny and Cork will do the greatest rivalry in hurling history in Nolan Park. Followed by Davy Fitz's Wexford welcoming the All-Ireland champions Limerick to the East Coast. In the football, there are a couple of nice matches to pick of them. It's in Division 1. We got Kerry hosting Tyrone. Kerry this year are already being tipped as, they're not going to do well, but watch out for them next year. And usually when that happens, you see that team win the All-Ireland. It's a team that are meant to be good next year that suddenly come out 12 months early, spring a surprise. Also, as I mentioned, the Royal Rugby. No, I've combined the two things I'm going to say here. Dear God, that's an awful clusterfuck. The Royal Rumble. And myself personally, on Saturday afternoon, I am heading to Edenderry for the All-Ireland Junior Cup final. The third Ashbourne Rugby Club have won 2 in a row. They're going for a hat-trick, which has never been done, at least by them. It's not been done for a while in terms of actual overall competition. They're against Enniscorthy, the most successful side in Junior Cup history. And then on Sunday, I did a great piece. I don't know if you're going to ask me about it later, about the Irish Longhorns in the Challenge Cup in Super League Rugby. No Irish side has ever managed to win a first-round game in the Challenge Cup in 124 years. They've got a great chance. They're away at Casper and Loughlane on Sunday afternoon. There's a long interview with them I don't know if it's in the paper yet, but it's on Buzz.ie. That's just a free plug for me, so I'm going to take that. They're on at 2 o'clock on Sunday. Keep an eye for history.
Okay, interesting. Right, guys, we're going to finish the show as we always do on Paddy's New Yacht. To explain for newer listeners, what we do at the end of the show is, because Dave is a reporter, and a well-respected reporter in the field for The Star and Buzz.ie, as stated, what I do at the end of every show is I quiz him on the stories he's reported during the week. Now, what we also do for this, because Dave has been involved in several cheating scandals in Low Blow's history, is we try keep it above board, and we add a video call to this. So we're going to add that. There we go. We are monitoring him day by day, new haircut and all. And we are going to ask him 3 questions based on the stories he's reported this week. See how much attention he's been paying. See how much research he put into the stories. If he gets 2 or more, he gets the point for the week. He was hucking me earlier in the season. However, I did complete a dramatic comeback. I am now winning the season 11-9. So Dave badly needs a win here. I have made these questions gettable, Dave. These are feasible questions.
2-1 last week, I think.
Yeah, so you're getting closer. Yeah. But we're going to start off with question 1. You reported on Judd Trump hammering Ronnie O'Sullivan 10-4 in the Masters final in Ali Pali last week. But what was the highest break in the match?
Oh, it was by O'Sullivan, if I'm not mistaken. He went over the century.
I can confirm you're right there.
Yeah, it was the one that he obviously Trump went 7-1 up, I think it was. And then O'Sullivan got a century break too.
For newer listeners, this is what Dave does. He starts telling you everything else he knows about the subject because he doesn't know the answer.
I'm good. I think it was 100. I have 2 numbers in my head, 106 and 117. I don't think it was 117, so I'm going to go 106.
Okay.
I know it was by O'Sullivan in the 12th frame, I'm going to say, but
no, what I'm asking. See, he does everything else for the answer when he doesn't know.
Just to prove that I don't just go, type. I know about this stuff. I just don't know the exact stuff.
I know sports things. You're a reporter. We know you do. You report this stuff. We know you know sports, Dave. You're hosting a sports podcast.
Have you ever listened to the crappy quiz? This is what fucking Nathan does all the time on Off the Ball. Where he's like, oh, I actually know I was there, but...
Question 2. Your final answer was 106, was it?
106, yeah.
Okay. Question 2. You reported on Sky mistaking a fan for New Huddersfield boss Jan Stuyvert during the week. Great story, by the way. Look it up. Sky basically went into the crowd to interview who they thought was the new boss,
idiots,
and it was just a fan. But where go ahead.
Why? Of all things to do, that guy looks a lot like the new manager, but Huddersfield have said he isn't here. Let's go interrupt this guy watching the football.
The best part was it was pre-recorded, and yet they showed it anyway, just to throw the reporter under the bus to make it show him. It was fantastic, and tweeted it out and all. But the question is, Jan Sievert, where did he manage before he got the Huddersfield job?
This up. Where did he manage, or where was he coach?
Where was he before? Where did they hire him from?
Wasn't it Dortmund? Because he was the number 2. It was in the sense that they'd taken David Wagner, who was Dortmund number 2 previously, and then he just replaced him with Dortmund's number 2 now, wasn't it? I don't think I've read that anywhere else. I've definitely read that somewhere, but I don't know if he was number 2 or number 3 to Klopp, or if he was number 2. Listen, I'll go for it. I don't have any better answer. So
Dortmund is your answer.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm probably wrong, but I know he was at Dortmund at some stage because the whole thing was Dortmund's number 2 to Dortmund's number 2.
Okay.
I'm going to say, grab.
Okay. Question 3. You reported on Roger Federer crashing out of the Aussie Open to greet Stefanos Tsitsipas. Fuck that name.
Listen, no one listening is going to be able to pronounce that name unless it's Tsitsipas' family. So apologies if they're George.
Let's just move on, Stefanos. But how many Grand Slams for singles has Roger Federer won? So there's no trick here. How many Grand Slams has he won?
He's only won the French once because that was Nadal. He's won. Oh, good Christ!
This is guessable.
Yeah, I've definitely read it somewhere. Like,
you should have read it in your report because you probably wrote that time Grand Slam winner. I don't know.
Did I write it in my
I can't remember.
I know it wasn't Wimbledon. French won the Australian Open. He's on 3 in a row, isn't he, or 2 in a row, back to back? Obviously he's out of it now, so obviously not. And then like he won everything in the mid 2000s. Like, have I a buffer? Have I 1 or 2, 3 of a buffer? Or do I have to get a spot on?
No, I've already given you a clue, so I'll just guessable.
Okay. So let's see, 8 at Wimbledon, 1 is 9. I'm gonna guess maybe 6 for the Australian Open, so that's 15. Is it like 21? 20? Hang on, if it's 21, isn't guessable, but it's around 20. But I don't know how anything other than 20 there is guessable. Unless it's like 25, but I don't think that seems a little bit high.
Do you recall, Dave?
No, fuck off! I hate when you do this.
That's the point of this. That's the point of the quiz. You have to give an answer. Are you saying 20?
I can't phone it. That's the only thing in my mind that you said that could be guessable, and it's not like 15. It's either 15, 20, or 25. 15 is too low. 25 is too high. I know if it was 25, I'm going to go 20.
Okay.
It's going to be 25 now, isn't it?
Question 1. There's a sneaky.
It's Dortmund reserves.
No, question 1 was the Masters. Right, let me talk. Question 1 was the Masters. This is sneaky even by my standards. The biggest break in Masters final. Now, you got this completely wrong. I thought we were going to argue with this. I thought you were going to remember what you reported. You said 106. It's not 106. You said it might be 117. And that is what you reported in the article. However,
it's not the highest. Yeah.
No. He didn't get a 117 break at all. That was a typo. The highest break was 114. So I was hoping you'd remember your typo and then be like, and then have to research it. It is 114.
Do you know the thing there?
What?
I had finished work at 8 o'clock. That was completed by another writer who I will not name for journalistic and GDPR reasons.
Under the bus.
I'm not going to throw him under the bus because he's not a sports writer.
All right, fair enough.
I had done it up until the 7-1, so...
Kento, your career is not on the line here. Like, your bosses are not listening. You're okay. It's fine. Don't panic. It's just funny. Where did Jan Sievert manage before Huddersfield?
Dortmund reserves.
Dortmund reserves is the correct answer. 1-1. So it all comes down to this.
25, I'm throwing this phone out the fucking window.
Roger Federer, how many Grand Slam titles has he won? You said it could be 15. You said it could be 20. You said it could be 25. It could be one of those. It is one of those.
But it's not 15. He's definitely won because he's won fucking Wimbledon 8 times. Although, maybe... No,
you've given your answer. You can't change your answer.
I'm trying to talk myself out.
So you'll know.
Just to make myself feel better.
You'll know quicker if you let me answer it. It is not 15. It is not 25. You win this week, 2-1. All right. 10-11. You're 1 score off, Kento. Congratulations.
Again.
Back to winning ways. I have to make it harder next week. I just have to keep them at arm's length.
Yeah, keep me at 2 or 1. Like,
I'm gonna be
if it gets level, it could be.
I'm going to be fact checking every typo you make within the next week. Guys, we hope you've enjoyed it. If it's your first Paddy's New Yacht or if you're returning, we hope you have a good weekend. Enjoy the FA Cup this weekend. We hope to see you at the Royal Rumble. Remember, guys, if you are a freeloader, get on to patreon.com/#globalows. If you can afford even just a couple of euro a month, it helps here because that's what keeps us running, essentially. We have to pay bills, unfortunately. I'd love to win the Euro Millions and be able to do this completely free every week. Unfortunately, I'm I'm an old man who has bills to pay, and so are my staff who work diligently behind the scenes. Patreon.com/#Globos. Anything you can afford will be appreciated. Anyway, we will be back next week previewing the Super Bowl with a huge show. The Six Nations get underway. We're going to be looking in depth at the games coming up for that, and the Premier League will be back also. So it's going to be a big week. Join us next week on Spotify, on iTunes, or on Patreon, whatever way you like your podcasting. But until next week, for David Kent, I've been Rick Nash, and this has been Paddy's New Yacht, you fucking bastard.